Everybody, welcome back to the Love in the Land podcast. I'm Austin Love, and really excited about my next guest here. Been wanting to have him on for a long time. Huge influencer here in the city. He is really the definition of a serial entrepreneur. He's an investor, marketer, brand builder, designer, builder of great businesses that are known, loved all throughout Cleveland, known throughout Northeast Ohio, and really the nation. You know him as Ilthy, Sora Sushi, FutureLand, just to name a few. We have the founder and CEO of Arora Ventures. We got Mr. Kumar Arora. Kumar, thank you so much for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here. It's been a while. We've been trying.
We've been really trying. I think the first email I sent you must have been when I was still at WKYC.
Maybe. Yeah. It's been a minute.
And here we are.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're finally able to do this. Absolutely. So, dude, you're such an influencer here in town in fashion and business and entrepreneurship. But I like starting off podcasts like this because anyone can Google you, anyone can go to your Wikipedia or whatever it may be to see all the accolades, things that you do, titles really. But in your own words, how would you describe yourself?
In a title or just?
No, just in general. Like, how would, like, if someone did not know you, how are you describing yourself?
You know, I would say I'm extremely creative.
Yeah.
That's the basis of all my work is creativity and just that idea of innovation. I always think about, with my work that I do is how can we innovate? How can we disrupt? How can we do things differently that's never been seen before, especially here in Cleveland, Ohio?
Sure.
So when it comes to, my work, that's I would say my ethos. But personally, I'm a fun guy. I love supporting others here in Cleveland. I love supporting small business. Love my wife, love my dogs. So I enjoy Cleveland. I'm glad to actually be back home. I was in LA for some time, so it's been a couple of years now post COVID, and I'm just glad to rebuild here in Cleveland.
Sure. So born and raised here in Cleveland, correct? Mm-hmm. Went away for LA, and I want to know the whole story of childhood and things like that. But since you brought it up, moving out to LA, you were there for what, 5-6 years?
Yeah.
What was different that when you first got there, that being a Clevelander, Midwesterner, born and raised, what's things that you learned that were different in LA, and then that has kind of changed your mindset or helped shift your mindset, and that you've now brought into business?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I don't want to encourage people to leave Cleveland,
sure,
but I do think that when you do step away and try new things, see new places, meet new people, when you do eventually make your way back home, well, I've said this before, you see in color while everyone else sees in black and white.
Yeah.
So whether it was creating FutureLand or Sora, which is my restaurant, I looked at that from an LA perspective. How do we do things that they do in LA? How do we beautify our spaces? How do we create things that are very different, that aren't really typical for Cleveland? And that's going back to who I am and how to get creative. So for me, when I went out to LA, I got to meet a lot of great people. I got to, really get that energy, and obviously the weather was great too.
Yeah, you can't beat that. Yeah,
I had a great run out there. I worked with Spring Hill Entertainment and CNBC. We built a show called Cleveland Hustles, which I was also on that show with LeBron James, and it was a great experience, to work in the entertainment side and marketing, and glad to bring my talents back home.
Yeah, like LeBron as well. Yeah, absolutely. How did that CNBC show kind of come about? What was kind of the genesis of that?
Yeah, not a lot of people know like the origin story. I've actually never really told it, but I remember getting an email.
No better time than right now, my man. Yeah,
exactly. It was 2015. I remember I was actually with DJ Evie at the time, and I got this spam email, at least what I thought was spam.
Sure.
And I look at it, I'm like, there's casting for a show that's similar to Shark Tank, but they won't reveal who's like behind it. I'm like, I'm sure this is just spam.
Yeah.
Deleted it. And then he's with me 2 hours later, and I get a phone call now saying, you need to read that email. It was a real thing. You should reply to it. Like, just trust us on this.
Sure.
And it was a mutual friend who had sent me that email. And before you know it, I eventually learned, because I didn't reveal it, that LeBron was behind the show. And the idea was to rebuild Cleveland, and here I am now emailing like neighborhoods and just things that they could be doing, because they're all LA based. They don't know like what to do in Cleveland, or how do we empower and impact Cleveland. So I didn't realize it, but I was sending them information, data, just stuff that they need to be aware of. And before you know it, as we're like talking about the show and providing insights, they're like, well, why don't you just be casted for it? I'm like, okay, awesome. Maybe I'll give it a shot. So I auditioned like everybody else, and during that time, it was almost 10 years ago now, it made me the first Indian American ever on television as an investor, and also the youngest shark on TV ever. So
it's
kind of cool, I guess.
That's pretty darn cool, I would say. Yeah, I mean, for you kind of sitting back now, has it sunk in a little bit more? Because, maybe it was at the time, but I feel like sometimes when you're in the middle of something, you really don't realize the gravity of it. Is it sunk in a little bit more, and what does that mean to you?
For sure. Those are, I think, some of my early baby steps. We're talking about now 8-9 years ago. 2016 was such a great time for Cleveland as it is, which was a great, a time for that show. We were number 2 on the network, right under the Prophet at the time. So it was just a good time to really elevate and highlight Cleveland as a whole. And, for me, I feel like I was a baby at the time. I've learned so much, but luckily for me, my work hasn't stopped. I have continued to invest and build business. I ended up investing in a product called Old City Soda on the show, which unfortunately no longer exists. But I haven't stopped investing in CPG since then. So
sure,
it's one of those things you learn, but it's fun to kind of look back at thumbnails and screenshots and be like, wow, like what was I doing back then? Because I was only, I think, 29 going on 30, and now I'm almost 40.
That's insane. Yeah, man, that's unbelievable. With LeBron, I'm from Rockford, Illinois. I really didn't know anything about Cleveland until I moved here in 2018. But kind of from afar, you heard about, I think everyone just kind of always knew because it rhymes and things like the mistake on the lake and yada, yada, yada. But now that I'm here and entrenched and know more about the city, is that what impact do you think, and maybe we can't even quantify it, that the LeBron James effect had on Cleveland and its now upcoming and its success?
We could say this about a lot of different people who have left Ohio or advocated or carried the torch for Ohio. And I'm fortunate I've gotten a chance to work, with Kid Cudi, LeBron, and very closely even Machine Gun Kelly, from in his early career even till today. And all of them carried the torch, within their career to continue to promote Ohio or Akron or Cleveland. And that's really important. I think that's what you really need to hear is, despite how far you go, you never forget your roots.
Yeah.
And that advocacy of what they've done has really highlighted our region.
Absolutely.
And that's like one of the greatest things that they could do is say, hey, we're not the mistake on the lake. We are far more than that. We are a charming city with all these amenities, So to me, that makes me proud when every time they even just reference it once in media. That's all you need to do to continue to shine that light on our city.
Yeah. I mean, you've been able to hang out with and get to know and work personally with, those big heavy hitters with LeBron, MGK, Kid Cudi. I mean, that's a hell of a mountaintop right there. Seeing those guys and seeing the success that they've had, is there something that, since you've been around them, got to work with them, that is just different than other people, and maybe a characteristic that resounds a little bit harder than maybe just, someone who might just be a little successful or something? I don't know. I know there's no secret sauce to anything, but is there one characteristic that you're like, yeah, these guys just have that?
Everyone will always say it's talent, right? But I don't think it's just talent. There is this relentless need to continue to move forward and continue to push, push those boundaries of what you even know, for all of them, and we get to watch them from afar. They are pushing boundaries and they have never crossed that before. So that's what I would tell anyone that I work with or investments or projects is we are always moving into uncharted territory, and if you don't know what's that next chapter, that's okay, because that's what it takes to be an innovator. And I'm fortunate that even just in a lot of our work, especially with Ilthy, we get to do that where we are pushing the boundaries of what is known for streetwear in Cleveland.
Sure. How did you develop that mindset, that mantra, that characteristic of, we're going to go and we're not going to go to a spreadsheet. We're not going to, there's a lot of businesses where you can map out exactly what it is. But it takes a lot of
risk,
stones to go into the unknown, So, where did you develop that and where did you learn that?
For me, I was actually same as my parents.
Yeah.
Grew up in Little Italy, born and raised here in Cleveland. And, my parents really instilled the idea of being a creator.
Sure.
This is far before content creation or social media. My dad was a scientist at Case Western. My mom grew up in the arts, so she went to art school in India. So for me, whether I'm in a lab learning about science, which is creation, or at my home, my home with my mom, just coloring and painting and just, learning that aspect of creativity, you still have to have that spark of innovation. You have to keep creating, So creation is in a sense of a level of risk. You know, you are putting pen to paper. You are thinking about things in a very different part of your brain. So for me, I feel like whether I'm investing in a new project or exploring something, it doesn't always, like you said, have to be an Excel sheet. How do we get to the end result that we're looking for, and what path do we take? Because there are thousands of different paths you can go with.
It's also interesting too with creation. It's not only a risk in money, especially as being an entrepreneur, but also a risk of like ego, you know, personally, because a lot of what you're creating is a part of you and you're putting it out to the world as well. And it could either be loved or it could be rejected. Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's okay. You know, at least you gave it a shot. And if the market wasn't receptive to it, that's totally fine. You are putting your passion and your love out there to see if it sticks, you know, and we see so many great examples of entrepreneurs out there who might have been trying for 40, 50 years, and then eventually in their, you know, later years, something just clicked and it worked, you know. And
Colonel Sanders, 70 years old.
Right. And we see that with a lot of
chicken.
Great, even J.K. Rowling, Jim Carrey, a lot of great celebrities have hit their stride a little bit later on, but they were relentless and they kept pushing those boundaries. So, you know, I'm really glad to be part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem here in Cleveland. And, the design and creative community, and it's just been great to see that renaissance in the last, I think, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've been on the forefront of that with everything that you've been able to do. You know, let's go back a little bit. What kind of kid were you? Did you have businesses as a kid or anything like that? Or
Not at all. Yeah, not at all. For me, again, growing up in Little Italy, went to Holy Rosary, just this random Indian kid running down the street. You know. For me, we lived a very simple life. You know, my parents were immigrants, so we didn't have a lot of stuff. I actually, you know, they couldn't really put me in sports. So I had to find other avenues of things I could do. I was a big gamer as a kid, so I think that probably propelled some of my creativity.
What games were you into?
It's probably anything Nintendo.
Absolutely. You know, the 64?
For sure. Yeah, even before that, Super Nintendo, NES. So, I mean, even now, you know, it's definitely still one of my passions, and maybe that'll turn into a business at some point. We'll see. But yeah, you know, I think for me, I led pretty simple life, just a normal kid. In Cleveland.
And then growing up here, where'd you go to high school?
North Royalton.
North Royalton? Oh, okay, nice. And then Ohio State?
That's right.
Sure, okay. So with Ohio State, I read that you went in pre-med.
Yep.
And
like every Indian.
Sure, absolutely. Find something, you know, safe and big salary. That's kind of the mantra. And that is not the route you took. What flipped in your mind from going safe, steady, school, paycheck, steady paycheck, yada, 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 to entrepreneur on your own, you know, working for every dollar you get?
Yeah. You know, I think I always kind of had that in me. I just didn't really know. There was no title or even major for entrepreneurship at the time. I mean, we didn't even have YouTube when I was in college.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So just to put some perspective on, you know, where we were and how we can learn, because you don't know anything. Yeah. You know, and you can't just Google it as easily as you want to today.
Or now ChatGPT it.
Right. So for me, you know, the interest was always there. I was looking up to Steve Jobs, Bill Gates in high school. You know, I was programming at the time, designing, and I was seeing all of these, you know, entrepreneurs just become these like household names. And I was looking at what they have built for our society, and I was like, I want to be able to do the same thing. Maybe not to that scale, but that interests me so much. So I found a passion in seeing those who are builders and creators. You know? And I didn't let that go. I ended up going to pre-med, and, you know, I had that, you know, life dilemma that most of us have is, what's our major? What are we going to do for life? And, you know, I had an interest in science, and, you know, especially with my dad, but, you know, that idea of business was always just kind of itching at me, you know, and before you knew it, I met, you know, DJ Evie, Glenn Infante, a lot of these people, even, you know, MGK, I met all of them in that time frame of where I was. And
about what years?
This is like 2005 to 2008.
Okay. Yeah.
For perspective. So exactly almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, and that's when we were all kind of in the scene, you know, doing events, creating mixtapes, throwing parties, events, you know, and that's when they would show up to our events, things like that. So we were all kind of in this little incubated hub of creativity in Ohio, not just Ohio State, but even in Cleveland. And, you know, for me, I was like, is this a viable path? Can I turn this into a business? Can this become long-term? And before you know it, I'm moving away from pre-med and never let go, never look back.
Sure. What did your parents say about that?
They were not happy.
Yeah.
No, they were not happy. I was throwing parties back then, and I was working in nightlife. And I had a design background, so I was doing a lot of creative. And then I was like, I can also be a marketer, you know? And before you know, I'm throwing tours and events with Chip the Ripper, MGK, all these guys, and just coming home with actual cash, you know? And I'm like, this is an actual business, you know? My parents don't see it that way. I was only 21.
Sure.
For anything, they probably thought I was selling drugs.
Yeah.
You know? Because this wasn't a professional path that one should take after college. But I think that was the same time frame. Of course, we're leading into like the recession and things like that, where we all have to figure something out, you know? And just because you might take a non-traditional path doesn't mean you can't be smart and educated.
Yeah.
You know, and I never let that go. I still continue to read even to this day, but for me, I took a little bit of a different path.
Sure.
And I had to do a lot of self-reflection, you know, and looking back at the last 20 years of entrepreneurship for me and all that I've accomplished, I really look at what I've done as something that's really intrinsic to me. You know, like people will say entrepreneurship is for others and in the community and the consumer, but really it's like my form of self-help.
Sure.
You know, it is something that is so intrinsic to me where I get to do a deep dive on myself on how far can I really go, you know? And that's exciting for me. I almost look forward to the next chapter of even my own career because I know that it's going to take me down certain depths I haven't been to yet.
What does that look like for you? Do you not even know it at this point?
I think it's okay to have a couple of those question marks in your life.
Yeah.
You know, I think some people want to know where they're going to be, who they're going to be with, what they're doing, and that's okay. You know, to have that safety net. I like to thrive in the unknown.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it'll go. For me, I think continuing to build in Cleveland is going to be something I'm going to do.
Sure.
Continue to invest in others, build, you know, the next generation of entrepreneurs, creators, and artists is definitely on my list.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've got some bucket list items I want to get to eventually in the next, 10 years or so.
Feel free to share one. What do you got?
With Ilthy, you know, we're doing a lot of great collaborations. We've learned that for our business, collaborating outside of, you know, your typical partners in Cleveland really helps you get on the map.
Yeah.
Much like some other brands out there in the streetwear space, it would be a dream to be able to work with, say, Pokemon. If we're going back to gaming.
Yeah.
You know, and that would be a huge dream of mine to be able to do something special.
I had the Pokemon Red Game Boy game. You know, when you slide in the cartridge. Who was your Pokemon player?
Charmander.
Charmander? Sure. Oh, dude.
Yeah,
big sure. Charmander guy.
Yeah, it's they're almost their 30th anniversary next year.
Is it really?
Let's put that into perspective for how old we are,
right?
Oh
my gosh, we are old. That's my gosh. I would have gotten more into Pokemon, I think, but I had two. I was the youngest of three, and both my older brothers were like,
they bully you out of it?
That's lame, like yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, whatever, man. Like, I like it.
I just actually, on that subject, I read this is me talking science, but now in gaming. I read a report a couple days ago, and they were talking about the brains of kids who played Pokemon are like vastly different from people who did not play.
Really?
And our memory and things like that are very different because we aligned Pokemon with actual animals in the same part of our brain. So if you played Pokemon, you should read this abstract that came out that like we're different than the average kid.
That's wild.
Because we had to memorize so much, like the move types, the regions, the types of Pokeballs. There's so much memory that was required to play a game at the age of like 10 or 9.
That is super interesting.
It actually changed our brains a little bit.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that.
I'm not mad at that at all. I love that. You talked about Ilthy. You talked about Glenn. How did you guys meet? Because, you know, I think a lot of people know you, obviously, you know, as being this entrepreneur, but maybe just a surface level that don't really know, is because of Ilthy and because of the impact that it's had on Cleveland, both in culture and just being great streetwear. How did you guys meet, and what was kind of that connection?
So our connection was DJ EV, actually, and he's also my business partner. He's involved with Ilthy as well now. But it was thanks to Eric. He connected the dots, and this was now probably 2009, and we actually met at a show that I was hosting for Wiz Khalifa out in Toledo.
Oh, sweet.
That was the first time we met, but me and Glenn have been kind of communicating over design on MySpace back in like 06, 07.
Throwback.
You know? And I was at Ohio State, he was in Cleveland. I just admired his work.
Was he in your top 8?
He was not in my top 8 because we didn't know each other yet.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because he wasn't on campus.
Now he'd be in your top 8.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've got him on speed dial now. But, you know, I admired his work from so far. He is one of our most cherished artists here in the city, and we need to protect guys like him and really, you know, level them up, you know. And I was fortunate that, you know, there was a point in time in Ilthy's early years, this is the first or even year and a half in, they needed investment. And at that point, I was, you know, moving in that space and for me, throwing events and working in nightlife and knowing how to create a crowd and create a line is no different from being able to do that for our very first store in Gordon Square. So I was able to take a lot of my learnings from, creative marketing and influencer marketing early days to then carry that over to Ilthy and then really just fall in love with the design side of things. And now I really lead the product development side of things. So, our partnerships, collaborations, sourcing, materials, things like that. So, it's been an evolution even for me too. And working alongside Glenn and just our entire team of designers and creatives has just been a blessing. And it's so great to see this all happening out of Cleveland, of all places.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And I also love the collaboration aspect that you guys had. And you guys have obviously collaborated with some of the biggest names in the city. Doesn't get much bigger in this city than Cleveland Browns, Cavs, NASA.
We did NASA last year.
Yeah, LeBron James Family Foundation. Recently, one of my favorites, Market Garden, also got the beer that came along with the merch. I think there's been a shift with our generation being millennials, is that different, not worse, than maybe it was worse, I don't know. Depends on who you ask. From a generation that was before us, I feel like they were a little bit more rigid, a little bit more closed off, not as open to collaboration, and your brand is really proof of that, is that there's power in collaboration. How have you seen that, and was it something that was tactical for you, or was it something that just kind of came naturally?
It was very tactical. We made an active effort. I think it was actually during COVID when it kind of started, where we realized, like, for the longevity of this business and also just to have some fun again, we're going to need to start partnering up with the right folks and really offer what we can bring to the table, right?
Was it not fun for a while?
For sure. Yeah. Losing your store and just the struggles of retail, especially I'd say like right around like 2019, 2020, losing LeBron and all that kind of stuff does impact businesses, and
absolutely.
we felt that pain point. So when we reevaluated our business and we looked at it, it's like, what do we want for our company? One of them was, how do we export this out of Ohio? How do we partner with collabs and brands? And we just did Atlanta Hawks. That was a couple months ago too. So we are now expanding our footprint, to say we can really make cool product anywhere. It doesn't necessarily just have to be our favorite Cleveland team. We just did Columbus Crew last weekend. That sold out in about 80 seconds, which was pretty cool.
Dude.
And it's just all about storytelling. A lot of these brands, and organizations, they're telling the same story over and over again. And in some cases, almost upwards of 50 plus years. You know? So when you bring in a bunch of young creatives to develop product, create a story, create a moment, that's what makes it special. So whether it's a beer with Market Garden or, a project with Bob Ross, which is coming out pretty soon, which is exciting. It's just a way for us to almost adopt their brand, but do it in our style. And that's kind of fun.
How do those take me inside the weeds here. How do those initial conversations start? Give me maybe the most interesting one. I don't know, whatever one it may be, that's a kind of an interesting story or maybe more of the norm story for any of these collaborations with any of these brands. I
could give you a really great story that happened, about a little over a year ago. It's a fun story. I was watching the Tetris movie on Apple TV.
Sure.
I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a great movie. It's kind of a biopic that talks about the story of Tetris and how it was basically smuggled out of Russia and how it became that phenomenon.
I did not realize
it's
that.
Insane.
That's insane.
It's an insane story. And it was the two founders, one was in Russia, one was in America's Hank Rogers, and he basically went out there to help bring this game to life. And then he even brought it to Nintendo, and obviously that's when they put it in every Game Boy, and it became just this overnight phenomena at the time, in the early 80s. And we were fortunate enough to do the 40th anniversary, which was last year. And the fun story was, after I watched the movie, I go to the contact form. I say, hey guys, I love Tetris. I've loved growing up, with that. I know it's your anniversary coming up. We would be honored to be able to put together a really cool collaboration. And here's our, company information.
Sure.
No response. 2 months go by. And then I get an email from IMG, because they represent Tetris.
Okay.
And they say, we saw your email. We would like to discuss that with you. What does that look like from a licensing perspective and royalty rates, things like that? And it turns out their licensing director, once we, worked with IMG, happens to be from Cleveland.
Get out of here, dude.
Right?
Dude, it's the Garden of Eden.
It was.
Everyone has a connection to Cleveland.
And so I've gotten very close with Megan, a very dear friend of mine, and now we talk about everything from, all the collaborations because she knows who we are.
Yeah.
You know, and she saw that email and she's like, you need to work with these guys.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the beauty of Cleveland, that we're everywhere. We're somewhere in the world.
That's insane.
And it was thanks to her. We landed Tetris, which was our second, kind of collab. We had done the Browns. That was the only thing we had in our portfolio at the time, 2023. Reached out to her. So Tetris was actually number 2 in our list of who we got. But because of that,
it's a hell of a starting list.
after that, that's when, the floodgates had opened.
Sure.
Then we teamed up with Cheez-It and Assassin's Creed, which just came out. And a lot of just really great collaborations had started coming because of the Browns and Tetris. So
that's insane, man. Yeah. So I walk me through kind of the mindset of it, because it's one thing to go after it. It's another thing to then produce.
Yeah.
Is that I'm sure it's like excited, and then it's the mindset of, oh crap, like
here's all this stuff and how do we get rid of it?
Yeah. I mean, what was that pressure like, or was there pressure?
There's that constant pressure almost every month or every other month for us, because we are always rolling out the next partnership, the next project for us. We're trying to see different demographics. So if it's the artist community, if it's the gaming community, the sports crowd, we're thinking about the audiences that represent Ilthy, and what interests us from a nostalgic standpoint, pop culture, sports. So for us, like, there's this constant wheel that we're like showcasing the next drop, and people want to see the next season and the next collection. So it's been an interesting learning curve for us to really almost grow up in the last, I'd say, 16 months.
What does that look like
for us, like moving forward
and growing up? Well, I mean, how do you define that?
I think getting your business chops down. We've been creative kids for so long, but now we're growing up. And I think that for us, like, really understanding like the business model and how we scale, how do we get into retail,
Sure.
How do we sell more in Chicago, New York, LA? That's our vision now. We need Cleveland to support that idea to help us get out there, because then we're putting flags of Cleveland every time we expand.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I put it to the correlation of like a really good cook. Just because you can cook really well doesn't mean you should open up a restaurant, because there's two different complete sides of that. You guys were the really good cooks. How have you then been able to learn, and by that I mean creatives, how have you then been able to learn those business chops, that knowledge, that whole deal, to now make what your superpower is of being creative and making it profitable?
I think for us, going back to what I said, there wasn't YouTube 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying YouTube is my answer, but the internet really does help you now.
100%.
And AI can even help supercharge it. But for us, it's like, there are people out there, there are resources, there is data to show that. So whether we're exploring e-commerce and AI, or how to effectively optimize our email marketing, things like that, we are like fine-tuning those things, because that's going to be what we need to do now, because we've gotten the product down. It's now about sharing with the world.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. What's a dream partnership look like for you guys? Who's still on the list?
Besides Pokemon, since I said that
besides
already?
Pokemon.
Let's see. I would love to do Ninja Turtles at some point.
Sick.
That'll happen in some time. But
who's your Ninja Turtle?
Growing up, it was Mikey for sure,
Yeah.
because I was a goofball. But I think with my responsibilities and who I'm becoming, I'm turning into Leo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I picked Leo as a kid just because I like blue.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be my go-to, 100%. So with a lot of this, with the partnerships, with even going back to Evie, MGK, Kid Cudi, Glenn, a lot of this has been collaboration. It's been relationships. How important are relationships for you now, and have been? Obviously, they've been successful for you, but how much of a stress is that for you in your life, or just relationships and building success on that?
People always say don't do business with friends. I disagree. Yeah. I think that if you can find friends who you can trust, who can call at 4 a.m., that's probably a good person to be able to work with, and just make sure that you complement each other. You don't really overstep in the same skill sets.
Sure.
Relationships and friendships, especially those that have gone to nearing the 20-year mark. In the case of like even me and Eric, we've met around this time 20 years ago. That friendship has compounded year over year over year, right?
Yeah.
His career DJing in stadiums and really growing in his path, and then me doing the same thing in entrepreneurship and investments and creative, right? We are in our own lanes. We have our own movies, but when we come together, we are the Avengers.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really important here. And I could go
That's
on and on.
That's a really good analogy, by the way.
I could go on and on about all the great things we've done in our solo careers, but when we do come together to build things like MGK Day, which was this massive festival that just took over our streets, or even the work we do through our agency called The Underdogs, we do a lot of great work for a lot of people, and it's because of that team camaraderie and the fact that we've been around for so long doing this, whether it's in murals or activations, events, and it's just fun to be able to do that with the people that you love,
How have you been able to manage friendships, relationships, egos, when, there's in creative vision, when three creators come together, you're not all going to have the same creative vision. And that's important for creators of like, hey, I have my vision. I want to rock and roll, like bada bing, bada boom. How do you bring that together to make it successful?
Yeah. There's ego in creative, there's ego in the arts, there's ego in business, right? It's everywhere. However, we need to think about like the reason an ego exists and try to dispel it.
Sure.
We can't have egos in the room in order to get to the goal that we want, right? No one is necessarily better than another, right? We're actually working on this really cool project. It's with the Transformative Arts Fund. It came out last year, and we applied as a collective, and our project's called For Art's Sake, where we're going to be doing a lot of great public murals and activations. We're actually doing a festival later this year. And the idea is to empower the next generation of artists. And a common theme is ego, and I'm going to be doing a lot of workshops this summer to really support that community, or our community, to ensure that we can let go of the ego, because in the end, the long-term vision is to empower everybody. It's to get us out of Cleveland. It's to get our art and our creative out to the world. And you have to do that without it being about me. It needs to be about us. So we've been doing a great job, I think, like working with different artists for different projects and really getting them to come together, because if we all promote together, we all win. And that's a big way to dispel that ego, because it's not just one person's show or one person's project. It is a group effort. And I look at our various communities that we have, and when we see a tech startup, bubble up, all the tech community needs to get behind that and rally behind it, just like we do a sports team.
Absolutely.
Or a specific player on a team. Is rallying around your colleagues, rallying around your even your competitors is not a bad thing, because if one person can do it out of our city or state, it says that I can do it too, and they're going to help open that path, because the more people we get out there and bring out to the world, the more successful we all become, because it is a region-wide effort, not just a solo effort.
Sure. I mean, it's the notion of rising tides raise all ships.
Totally. And even when my investment strategy now, I've gotten a chance to like think through different deals that come on my desk, and I'll look at them like, is this very ego-driven? Does this person build a team? Do they know how to work with a team? Because great business is not built by one founder. It is built by teams.
Sure.
The iPhone or Tesla or any of these businesses that we see every day, they're not built by a couple people. They are built by organizations who work hand in hand with one collective vision. And that's kind of what I see, and that's what I wish for Cleveland, that we all have one collective vision, that we all want to win.
What does that look like?
In all spaces, I would say, and even just for all of us, to empower our mayor, and to support him in all ways that we can, us doing good in business or in creative or whatever it is that we do, we are also supporting our mayor, and vice versa, and I think that applies to even you guys at, the news stations or everyone. We want to just make sure everyone is kind of interconnected and has those resources and also has ways to grow, right? So I encourage, and I've said this plenty of times, like I don't gatekeep. People can message me and I will tell you where I did it, how I did it, or why I did it, right? And that's important, because if I can tell someone that and they can run with it, I'm passing the baton so then they can also win. I recently just did a talk at Tri-C, and I said the same thing, like I'm going to stay as late as I can. I want to make sure everyone can at least talk to me. I want to make sure I want to see everyone win. And we ended up staying till the lights were down and the security was leaving. And that's important, because we've had a mentality in Cleveland for so long. This is like, I'd say before 2016, where it was very dog eat dog. Everyone was very competitive, and that's okay, right? But I think that if we look at ourselves as a sports team as a whole, Cleveland, the community as a sports team, I want my players to win. I see everyone as one of my players, and I think that's important. And I think that's how we're going to grow as a region.
Sure. Is that kind of why, and maybe it's just other aspects, but you don't just have one sole focus. Like you could just focus solely on Ilthy. You could just focus solely on FutureLand. You could focus solely on Sora. But those are three completely different focuses, industries, really. I mean, where does that energy come from to be like, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that? I mean, there has to be passion in all those.
Definitely. There's that old saying of, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
And I could not figure that out.
Sure.
I still can't figure that out.
Yeah.
Right? Can I do it all? Why can't I do it all? Who says I have to stop? And when we look at some of the greatest entrepreneurs or artists out there, we could use the easiest example. I'd say Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah.
Scientist, painter, architect, inventor. You could do it all.
Yeah.
And we see that even with celebrities, philanthropist, actor, musician, they own a restaurant, right? We've seen how they can do so much. So what's to say we can't do the same thing? Do we have to be an accountant for the 40 years of our life?
Yeah.
We don't have to.
Sure.
You could do more than that. So I think that whether it's a side hustle or a passion project or just the idea of wanting to learn something, you can do it. And you should not be afraid of that.
Sure.
Right? So in my case, as a serial entrepreneur, I'm always thinking about ideas and who I can team up with, who I can invest into. I will never say that I'm doing too much because for me, it's something I enjoy. We all have, 40, 50 hours a week to work on something. So I could still balance my load and make sure I still have time for family and, all that. So I don't say I'd overwork, but I work on the things that need me the most at the time that it's needed. So if something's plateauing, I will, work on it. But if it's on the rise, I have a great team behind me who can help me too.
Yeah. For you to invest in something, someone, what do you look for and what are the red flags?
Besides ego,
Yeah.
been the topic. Red flags for sure. You don't have a business plan. You don't have a proof of concept. You haven't actually put in a couple of years of skin in your own game, right? You have to invest yourself before someone else wants to invest in you. I want to see that. You know, I've made some recent investments last year. Cleveland Kitchen being one of those great guys. Really excited for their growth and the opportunity, especially for CPG in our market. I think when it comes to consumer packaged goods, like Cleveland could be a hub for that, and I would love to see them really win because they will actually pave the path for the next dozen.
Absolutely.
And we see that in New York, Chicago, and other markets. So really grateful and proud of those guys and what they've done, and it's a beautiful story. You need to have them on next, honestly.
Yeah, I'd love to. Absolutely.
Another one is VO Med Spa, which is the fastest growing franchise here in the med spa space, and it's actually headquartered here in Cleveland. Another amazing group of people. They'll be nearing, I think, 80 some locations across the country.
Wow.
So I've made some investments in a handful of those and looking to grow with them too. And, I love seeing those kind of businesses because they've shown that they can grow and then they can show where they're going to go after that. And seeing that you can export a business out of Cleveland is another thing that's important to me too is how can we get them out?
Sure.
Because we can't expect to build a business and then just continue to work on retention here in Cleveland. We need to know how can we expand our footprint and make money elsewhere too. Yeah.
Is there one that now looking back that you were approached to invest in and you didn't for whatever reason and you kind of kick yourself about it?
In Cleveland?
Yeah, or whatever.
That's a tough one. I got to think about that one. I can't think of one immediately, but it'll come to me while we're talking.
Well, we could talk about it on the next episode when you come on.
For sure.
How's that? Yeah.
I got to find some regrets, and I'll come back to you.
Sure. I mean, we talked a lot about work. What do you do for fun?
I've got two beautiful dogs.
Awesome.
So I spend a lot of time with them. Sunny and Toby, shout out to them.
Yeah.
Newly married, so it's been, a year and a half. So
congratulations.
Thank you. So, just spending time with family, friends is important to me. Love trying new restaurants, new businesses. So I'm a big believer of supporting local. So I make an active effort to make my rounds, love meeting owners and just talking to them and, sharing that journey. I don't look at business as, something that's just work, but it's just a way of life. You know? So I love just to spend time with people like that and really just give back to the community.
Sure. I got married 2.5 years ago, but you've, did majority of your career and built majority of your business, not being married. How did that change you when, you also are with a partner? And I mean, for me, it changed me for the better. And I mean, what was the impact like for you with the marriage and the differences of it?
It's funny. I think that marriage and family itself, it provides this duality to yourself where you are running as fast as you can when you're out of the home, but when you come home, you have to be as still as possible.
Yeah.
You cannot be continuing to run the same way, and that's an important aspect that I'm continuing to do better at. I don't necessarily talk about work when I'm at home. I try not to.
Yeah.
But most importantly, decision making. Every strategic decision is not necessarily just for me anymore. It's for my future.
Sure.
And I'm sure you're thinking about that too. Is you want to share those kind of accolades and moments and milestones because your partner can also kind of share that with you.
Yeah.
So I think I'm a little bit more strategic and a little slower at the next project because I know that every project I start, I see them as my babies.
Yeah.
I have to be a little careful because it does take away your time. We only have a handful of different cups in our life. We have a cup for ourselves, we have a cup for our work, and we have a cup for our friends, one for our spouse, and you have to try to balance those cups and keep them full.
Yeah.
At any given moment, you won't have all of them full. So I think about that topic a lot is how do I ensure that I'm, maintaining my work with my community, maintaining the work that I do with my colleagues, but then also maintaining the cup that I have at home.
How do you balance that, or how have you learned to balance it better than maybe you did 10 years ago?
10 years ago, I would be working till 4 a.m.
Sure.
And that's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah.
So when it's, 5, 6 o'clock, I completely shut off. I have learned, and this is something I think I encourage everyone, is it's okay to turn off.
Yeah.
You actually need to, because that reset, at least daily, is very important. I think I just read recently the founder of Netflix and how he always has a date night plan with his wife every Tuesday.
Yep.
And it's a hard cutoff at 4:55 that he's offline, even if it's the most urgent problem. You cannot talk to him because he has his specific date night planned out on Tuesday. And I'm envious of that because I want to get to that goal.
Yeah.
To have something so solidified where we always do something on the same day every week, because I find that so beautiful where you could do that with your loved one, for years to come.
Sure.
And that is the journey in itself, no different from the journey of entrepreneurship.
No, I love it. Love it. Looking back in your career and things that you've built at this moment right now, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of the fact that I came home to Cleveland.
Awesome.
I think that COVID was the plot twist of my life.
Yeah.
I never thought that was going to happen. I don't think any of us did. I think that I was going down a path in LA where I was going to focus on entertainment and CPG and more investments. And I looked at LA at the time where it was like the mountain I wanted to climb.
Yeah.
Right. And I was prepared to climb that mountain. I didn't know if the mountain in Cleveland was big enough.
Sure.
Looking back on it now, I'm so grateful to be home. I could do so much more here in Cleveland, and everyone's trying to climb that mountain in LA.
Yeah.
And not everyone will ever make to the top,
Sure.
honestly. In my time, I learned that while LA has the energy and the vibe, it's Cleveland that has the roots. LA taught me how to fly, but Cleveland has given me my roots. I actually almost prefer, planting those seeds and having those roots. And I say that because, again, we're all on the same team, but we can do so much more. We just haven't been fully activated yet.
Yeah.
And I think that whether it's sushi or FutureLand or For Art's Sake and what we're trying to do from an activation standpoint and, really help build our economy, it's almost more fun to play as the underdog.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing all that we're going to do the next 20, 30 years and how we're going to help evolve Cleveland. And it makes me so proud to see that with Evie or Mayor Bibb and all these young people who have such fire in them to really create their lanes, and how they can do that. And I'm just inspired every day by everyone around me, you included,
Thank you.
How we do that for our city.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's super exciting to think about it. And it just means more. For some reason, just means more in Cleveland.
It does.
And it means more than it would in LA or New York or whatever it may be. It was never on my bingo card to come here. It was never on my bingo card to stay here. I thought I was going to be here for 2 years, do my time, go back home to Chicagoland area, and quite literally fell in love, met my wife. But I fell in love with Cleveland before I met her, and then it was like moving toward. I was like, it would mean more to be here and to try to build something here.
Yeah.
There's something special. I remember when I first got to town, I was talking to Maureen Kyle, and she was like, "Oh yeah, Cleveland, it sucks you in, yada yada." I was like, "Yeah, whatever. I'll be out here in 2 years." And I'm going on 8 years.
There you go.
No,
yeah, we're keeping you.
And I have zero plans to leave. Yesterday, I was like, and I never thought I'd be a Browns fan. The draft was yesterday, just for anyone listening, and I was so fired up about the Browns pick. I was just a hot little potato. And but now I've cooled off a little bit, but still, I'm like, man, why does my football fandom suck so much? I'm a Bears fan by birth. I'm an Iowa Hawkeye fan by college, and then now I'm a Browns fan. It's just like
you're an underdog.
I'm an underdog, baby. Absolutely.
Let's say it that way.
Absolutely, I love that. All right, let's see. What do you want your legacy to be?
That's a good question. I'm not necessarily a big believer in legacy. I know it sounds weird because you want to leave the earth with the things that you have done. But again, taking ego aside, it's not about me.
Yeah.
I would like to leave Cleveland or leave this world far better than I left it.
Sure.
That's number one. I would love to, again, plant those seeds that would support and innovate and help the next few generations. To me, that's more than enough.
Yeah.
That's all I need. I don't need my name on a building or any of that fun stuff.
Well, maybe it'll come. You never know.
You never know.
All right, let's do some quick hitters.
Sure.
The Cavs will finish how this season, or where?
We're going to the end. What do you mean?
I love it.
That's right.
Let's go, baby. Kill, kiss, marry. Cleveland Sports Edition. I love this one. Browns, Guardians, or Cavs?
Oof. Okay, so marry the Cavs.
Love that.
Diehard Cavs fan. Kill the Browns, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. It's just been too long. You can just kill them and bury them in Brook Park at this point. And what was the other one?
Kiss.
Kiss the Guardians. Or Indians, right? I'm Indian.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. I already asked you dream collaboration for Ilthy, Pokemon.
That's
Love
right.
that for you.
We'll see. Fingers crossed.
Pokemon, let's rock and roll, man. Come on. Besides Sora, favorite spot to eat in Cleveland?
I love that you said that because I was about to say Sora.
Yeah.
Favorite place? Man, there's so many. Let's see. Coffee, Lecco.
Sure.
27 Club.
Yep.
Lago for Italian.
Mm-hmm.
Il Rione for pizza.
Done.
I can keep going.
Yeah.
What else? Good Company for wings.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is like right down the street from me.
They are so good. Yeah, Will Hollingsworth, baby.
Yeah, there's too many. Cleveland, I mean, we got our food down, that's for sure.
So growing up in Little Italy and I know you said you didn't grow up with a lot, but was there like a dream spot where you were like, oh, it's a special night, we're going out to dinner here?
Mama Santa's.
Mama Santa's?
Yeah,
I
live across the street, so that and growing up, I would just go and grab a slice of pizza. 25 cents a slice back then.
Yeah.
And they'd put on my tab. I'm like 4 years old.
You had a tab.
They'd come knock on my parents' door and be like, hey, your kid's been getting pizza the last 3 weeks, so you owe us like $3.
Yeah.
So that was my life back then.
That is so funny. I love that. If you had a walk-up song play every time you entered a room, like a baseball player going up to the plate, what would it be?
Till I Die, MGK.
Nice.
That's probably one of them for sure.
Love that. Love that. You get one word to describe you. What is it?
Relentless.
Love it. Love it. All right. I'm out of questions, man. Any questions for me?
Going.
Yeah. Well, let's see what we got here. Favorite thing to eat at Sora? I'm sorry we didn't really talk about Sora too much.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
We're going on 3 years. Our anniversary's coming up.
Yeah.
Sora is my love letter to bringing a piece of LA back with me.
I love it.
And you see that in the design, the decor, the style of our menu. For me, creating a box concept.
Yeah.
During COVID and it going viral and Miles Garrett, Baker Mayfield, everybody eating it was just so fun to watch. And it was a way for me to create an experience in the home when we didn't have it. And designing the box was so much fun. And I have a packaging background, so it was very easy for me to create it. And before you know it, our partners, Fabio, was like, do you want to turn this into a restaurant?
Yeah.
At the time, Bold Kitchen was closed. So I'm like, all right, let's do it.
Sure.
To the person who like never wants to invest or build a restaurant.
Yeah.
Just because I know how hard it is. But I'm just grateful again to see people wanting to build. And before you know it, now it's our 3-year anniversary. We've been winning nonstop awards for like best cocktail, best sushi in the city, and just a great vibe. I'd love to take you out.
Absolutely. I've been there. I love Sora. It's number one. It is one of the most beautiful restaurants I've ever been inside of. You can tell that you have an art background. But then also too, I mean, it's phenomenal too. My wife and I love sushi, and it's great. So, like how they have like, I'm sorry to compare Sora
crispy
to
rice,
to
right?
McDonald's.
I know where you're getting at.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
you know how like McDonald's has like the Travis Scott meal or whatever. What would be the Kumar meal at Sora?
Okay, start with a few nigiri. I would do toro belly. I would do kampachi, yellowtail, crispy rice as an appetizer, and I'd finish off with the Sora roll, which is like our surf and turf.
Yeah.
It's got gold flakes on top. So those are our signature items for sure.
Love it. What's the cocktail?
The lychee revival, which is actually my mom's favorite drink too.
Love that.
Yeah, it's just a very floral based drink. Kind of matches our decor. So just another item that I love.
Sure. You brought up your mom. You know, we talked earlier that they weren't super pumped that you were leaving pre-med. You know, now what do they say? They have to be super proud.
Oh yeah, you know, it took a long time to get here, but
same with my parents.
Yeah, I think it was in my mid-20s when they were like, "No, you need to go get your MBA and this and that." And I'm like, "No, not for me. I'm too far along, you know." And
the school of hard knocks, baby.
I would rather fall and fly, fall and learn how to fly, than to be given a parachute.
Sure.
You know, I think there's something more fun about that. So they're very proud of me. I hope I am living up to their expectations.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I think I do everything with their what they've given me early on, you know, especially being left brain, right brain, science and art. So
totally,
it's been really interesting to be analytical, but also creative.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There's a few things to promote here. You have the microphone. Bob Ross collaboration.
That's
Tell us about that.
It's funny. We dropped it as an April Fool's joke, and turns out it's happening.
Awesome.
Which is even cooler. So we are actually doing it. Comes out next month.
It's such a hack to just like test something out. Be like, oh, you should actually do it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So it's gonna be coming up pretty soon. We're looking to have it out in a couple weeks. So it'll be mid-May. So it'll be posted on Ilthy. Ilthy's Instagram and our website, ilthy.com. We've also got a really beautiful mural we're working on at Otter Park Playground. It's called The World Is Yours. Glenn Infante, very, again, talented designer, is leading the project along with Stina, another artist here in our city. And the idea is to really advocate and promote for Black maternal health.
Awesome.
And it's right in line with Mother's Day, which is awesome. So that'll be May 9th from 3 to 6. So would love for you to come.
Absolutely.
And, you know, really tell the community the story of what Black women, Black mothers go through, you know, and they are the foundation of our communities. And there's so much work we all have to be doing to advocate and promote these kind of subjects. So it's important that from a transformative arts perspective, we are not only just doing cool stuff, but we're telling a story and we're providing a platform. So UH will be there. We've got a lot of great people advocating for that. Birthing Beautiful Communities is also coming, and they've been doing a lot of great work in that space. So for us, it's about building the platform and pushing a certain, you know, message out there in hopes that we all recognize that we have a lot of work to do in Cleveland, and it takes all of us to do that. You know?
Cool. And then FutureLand.
FutureLand will be coming up. It's actually turning into an all-year program, so we've got events throughout the summer. You can just go and see that on FutureLandCLE.com pretty soon. So we'll be rolling out a series of events, but then the conference will be happening sometime in October.
All right, sweet. All right. Anything else you want to get off your chest?
No, I think we went through a lot.
We went through a lot.
People are probably pretty overwhelmed. Like, how does this guy keep up with all of it? But I swear, it's not as bad as it looks. I'm really grateful to have just an amazing team of people everywhere who carry the same vision and mission that I do.
That's awesome, man.
I couldn't do it without everyone around me.
Yeah, and it's been so much fun sitting down with you, and it's been everything I kind of expected it would be, and it's great to be able to hang out with you and see, you know, your perspective and how you've kind of gotten to where you are, which has been great. And thank you for everything that you're doing for Cleveland. Last thing I always end with, I've been asking a lot of questions. Any questions for me?
What is your favorite restaurant in Cleveland besides Sora?
Yeah, yes, definitely in the top 10. My favorite, Il Venetian.
Oh, that's a good one. I forgot about that one.
Slept on.
Yeah.
It's super slept on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of my favorites. That's like our special go-to out night type deal. I'm at Southside all the time just because I live in Tremont. Mm-hmm. I'm at High and Dry a lot, but not really. I mean, we eat there, but yeah. Market Garden a lot. Yeah. I love the new Market Garden Ilthy beer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got some more collabs coming out. Not with Ilthy, but some other ones you'll see soon.
Love it, man. Plug everything. Where can we find you? Where can we get in touch with you? Where can we follow all your ventures?
Easy enough. It's all on my site.
Sweet.
So my website's just my name. It's kumar-arora.com. It's KUMAR-ARORA.com. And that's kind of where I keep up with all my portfolio, all my other investments. You can get to see videos like me on CNBC's Cleveland Hustles, or I actually just went to the White House not too long ago and had a video on that. So a lot of fun stuff that I post on my site. And then I also, carry that over to my socials, which it's the same everywhere. It's just K Arora 007.
Okay.
That's where you can find me on Instagram, MySpace, Facebook, Friendster.
You still active on MySpace?
No, I'm just kidding.
Good stuff. Kumar, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. See you guys next time.
Yep.